Imagine watching the head of the FBI get pressed so hard on live TV that he can't even say what his own budget cuts mean. You could see it in his face, the hesitation, the deflection, the tight smile that said everything without saying a word. This wasn't just another routine hearing, it was a political chess match where every sentence could expose a weakness and one slip could shatter the agency's image of control. It started when Representative Rosa DeLauro leaned forward, eyes locked, voice sharp, and asked a question no bureaucrat wants to answer. If your budget is $500 million smaller than last year, what exactly are you cutting?
Below the current level. How would you restructure the budget to get to what you need in order to be able to make sure that we are not defunding law enforcement and that we are not cutting the analysts that you need in order to be able to do your job and to be dealing with national security issues? I don't understand. You've got a budget request, $500 million less, and you're cutting people. You don't know who you're going to cut. You don't want. Tell us which it is. Are you going to restore that $500 million? You're going to request restoring that $500 million?
Well, as I said, I'm not the budget expert, but the budget request that we put in, the FBI, was $11.2 billion, I believe. And we are working through the appropriations process and the OMB process and the skinny budget that we've received to work with y'all to help us get to a number. And I believe if we got back the number you stated, we would not have to cut more FBI.
So with a $500 million cut, more than 5% below the hard freeze of the FBI's operating budget, you believe that then this would not impact enforcement or national security related functions? Then what are the positions, I'm going to ask the question again, what positions are you looking to cut? What is the cuts for this $500 million? Now, apparently that $500 million, you're not in the budget department, but this is your budget. This is your budget. You have to have some idea of what you want to fund or not fund, or where you think you can cut or not cut, and provide that information to OMB. I'm unclear, and it seems to me that you are, as to what should be the budget of this agency, and if it's $500 million lower, what are the positions that you believe will have to be cut in order to reach the mandate that you are bringing forward to us in terms of your budget?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's the proposed budget, not by the FBI. The proposed budget that I put forward is to cover us for $11.1 billion, which would not have us cut any positions. The proposed budget.
So the skinny budget is we don't have, the skinny budget is wrong.
The skinny budget is a proposal, and I'm working through the appropriations process to explain why we need more than what has been proposed
So
in that budget.
what do you need? You need $11.2 billion?
Approximately.
Okay. Now, is that going to be delineated? I don't know what that means in terms of cuts that would be coming up to reach that goal. So there would be no additional positions deleted from the FBI if you get that amount of money.
That's correct.
And that's what we anticipate is coming in a budget that we anticipate at some point. We don't know when we're going to get it, even though we will be in markups by the time this effort is underway. But according to what we have received from the FBI, there are 904 positions that are currently slated for transfer from Washington, D.C. to field offices that are currently vacant. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is, what, is there any explanation of why these positions are moving to field offices? One of the things we can't seem to get answers to, and this is not you, is programs that are being deleted, programs that are being frozen, dollars are being frozen, programs that are being cut. We don't have any sense on this committee, which is the Appropriations Committee, and making a determination of what we should or shouldn't do, is any evaluation from any agency so far, and I ask this of you, what is the criteria? What are the programs that are going to be potentially left behind? What is the evaluation process here that says why these programs are no longer functional or not working? What is the story? Can we get from you when we're going to get some sort of an idea of what is a budget that you can deal with? Is what will be, what may be cut, what may not be cut, and why? What's the criteria by which that these programs would be, the evaluation is to transfer them out? Or why are these people going to field offices? Can we get that from you?
Yeah, I can give it to you right now, ma'am. The short answer as to why these folks are going to the field is because we are moving agents, intel analysts, and SOSs across the country into every state to get a hand-level grasp on violent crime in every single community. We're moving those folks out there.
Okay, but I just will wrap up, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. You need to provide for us, specify exactly which so-called, quote, overhead positions are being cut, and since other federal agencies are also proposing position cuts, how won't this cut inevitably reduce the FBI's intelligence analytic capabilities? We need to have that information before we can determine what the budget is.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yield back.
Mr. Klein.
The room fell quiet for a beat. Cameras caught Patel's pause. His jaw tightened before he spoke. "We don't have the skinny budget," he stammered. "The skinny budget is wrong." And just like that, the tension broke wide open. Because when a top official starts arguing that their own published numbers are wrong, you know something's off. DeLauro didn't blink. She pressed harder. "Then what do you need?" $11.2 billion, and what gets cut if you don't get it? Patel dodged again. "We haven't looked at who to cut. We're focusing on how not to have cuts." That single line summed up the entire exchange, an answer that wasn't an answer at all. On paper, the FBI's proposed budget for the year was slashed by over $500 million, more than 5% of its total funding. For most agencies, that's devastating. For the FBI, it's national news. Those numbers aren't just money. They represent analysts, field agents, cybercrime units, and counter-terror teams. So what happens when an agency that claims to protect the nation can't or won't explain how those cuts hit? DeLauro wasn't asking for theatrics. She wanted details. Which programs are being frozen? Which intelligence analysts are being laid off? Which investigations will lose support? Straightforward questions, but Patel kept circling back to the same talking point. That's the proposed budget, not our real one. He blamed the skinny budget, a preliminary draft from the administration, calling it a starting point rather than a reflection of the FBI's priorities. But to Congress, that excuse wasn't enough. The hearing wasn't about proposals, it was about accountability. Lawmakers needed specifics to decide whether to restore funding. Patel had none, and that's when the frustration turned visible. DeLauro's tone sharpened. "You're talking about $500 million below current levels," she said. "How can you possibly say this won't impact national security?" Patel repeated that the Bureau requested $11.20 billion, an amount that, if approved, would prevent cuts altogether. But that only raised more questions. Why did the administration send over a smaller figure in the first place? And why couldn't the FBI director himself clearly explain what happens if Congress doesn't restore it? To outside viewers, Patel's answers looked like textbook bureaucratic deflection, careful wording, polite repetition, and zero substance. Inside Washington, that's a red flag. When a department head can't or won't describe what's on the chopping block, it means either the planning hasn't been done, or the truth is too politically risky to say out loud. Then came the detail that shifted the conversation entirely. DeLauro mentioned something buried in the budget documents. 94 FBI positions were already slated to move from Washington, D.C. to field offices across the country. These weren't new hires, they were vacant jobs being transferred. She wanted to know why. Patel finally had a direct answer. "We're moving agents and analysts into the field to get a handle on violent crime in every community." It sounded good on the surface, local presence, boots on the ground, tackling violent crime head-on. But DeLauro wasn't convinced. "What's the evaluation process?" she asked. "What's being cut in exchange for these transfers?" No answer. That's when it became clear the Bureau was shifting people around without publicly explaining what programs were shrinking to make it possible. And if even the Appropriations Committee couldn't get that information, how could the public? DeLauro called it out plainly. We need you to specify exactly which overhead positions are being cut, and since other federal agencies are proposing position cuts too, how won't this reduce the FBI's intelligence capabilities? Patel's response: a brief yes ma'am, nothing more. At that point, even the chairman looked uneasy. The exchange wasn't explosive, but it was revealing. You could feel the underlying clash, one side demanding clarity, the other trying to survive politically. The optics were brutal. On one hand, Patel claimed violent crime was the Bureau's #1 priority. On the other, his agency had just submitted a budget that effectively starved the very divisions tasked with fighting it. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. In DC, they call this kind of moment a controlled fire. It's when an official takes the heat publicly to contain the narrative privately. By refusing to list specific cuts, Patel avoided giving headlines like FBI slashes counter-terror units or cybercrime teams gutted in new budget. But in doing so, he created a different problem. He looked evasive. To lawmakers, it's not just about numbers, it's about trust. When an agency that operates in secrecy won't even be transparent about its own funding, it reinforces every suspicion the public already has about how opaque Washington can be. The bigger danger is what these cuts could actually mean on the ground. The FBI isn't just another agency, it's the nation's first line of defense against terrorism, organized crime, cyber attacks, and public corruption. Every analyst or agent lost means fewer investigations, slower responses, and weaker coordination with local law enforcement. The irony: these hearings are meant to prevent exactly that, to make sure budgets don't get approved blindly. Yet here was one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world, unable to provide even a basic list of what it might lose. And it wasn't the first time. Over the last few years, both Republican and Democratic lawmakers have accused major agencies of stonewalling during budget reviews, answering in vague terms, hiding behind process, and turning every direct question into a semantic debate. It's a strategy meant to survive the hearing, not clarify the truth. But DeLauro wasn't having it. Her questions weren't political, they were practical. If positions are being eliminated, who fills the gap? If analysts are moved to field offices, who manages headquarters coordination? If local crime units grow, what happens to cyber defense? None of those got answered. And that silence said more than any prepared statement could. In the bigger picture, this moment revealed how fragile transparency really is. The public assumes government accountability happens naturally, that Congress asks and agencies answer. But behind closed doors, it's often a battle of endurance. Lawmakers push for detail, officials push back with process, and in the middle the truth gets buried under layers of bureaucratic phrasing like working through appropriations or finalizing internal review. What's worse is how normal this has become. Each side blames the other for the confusion. Lawmakers say agencies hide information. Agencies claim Congress misunderstands how the process works. The result? No clarity, just headlines about tension and deflection. Still, this hearing mattered. It wasn't just about the FBI's funding, it was about the principle that no agency, no matter how powerful, should operate in the dark when it comes to taxpayer money. Because once transparency slips, accountability follows. And whether you support expanding the FBI's budget or think it needs reform, everyone should want one thing: clarity. The American people deserve to know how their money is spent and what's being sacrificed in the name of streamlining. As Patel himself admitted, the skinny budget isn't final, but that's exactly why his answers mattered. These hearings shape the decisions that define public safety, surveillance programs, and national defense for years to come. If those decisions are made without open discussion, the consequences don't just hit balance sheets, they hit communities. So what really happened in that hearing? On paper, nothing dramatic, no shouting, no viral moment. But in reality, it exposed how even a few vague sentences can hide the true cost of government priorities. DeLauro wanted clarity. Patel gave compliance. Between the two, the American people got neither reassurance nor explanation. Just another reminder that accountability in Washington isn't about who yells loudest, it's about who answers honestly. And when those answers don't come, it's not just political theater, it's a warning sign. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just about budget math, it was about trust. The kind that keeps institutions credible and the public safe. When that trust erodes, the consequences echo far beyond one committee room. So was Patel being cautious because the process isn't final? Or was he carefully dodging to avoid admitting the FBI might be stretched thinner than it wants the public to know? That's the question hanging over this entire exchange, and it's one the agency will have to answer eventually. Because the numbers don't lie, even if the language does. If this breakdown helped you see through the polished answers and get a clearer look at what's really happening behind the scenes, hit that like button right now. Share this video so more people understand what these hearings truly reveal. And don't forget to subscribe, because next time we're diving even deeper into how power, money, and accountability collide in Washington. You won't want to miss it.